Hello and welcome to the Apex Engineered axle assembly for the rear suspension kit and the rear track attack kit. Now please watch this video through in its entirety. There's a lot of subjects that we go over and they are going to be very helpful because we do get this question asked very often. So first thing we have here is going to be our axles. You'll notice the silver ones are going to be our axles and these ones are going to be the OEM axles. We took off the boots so then you get a little more clear understanding. Now you'll notice that our axles are shorter than the factory axles. That's so it fits inside the original track width. So if you're opting for the 370Z differential and the 370Z wheel bearings, you are going to be purchasing a set of these OEM 370Z axles to use with our axles that we provide with the kits. So here on the left side we have the differential side and the differential side CV. On the right side we have the wheel bearing side and the wheel bearing side CV. So one thing to always make sure is you have the OEM 370Z axles because that will only work with our axle shafts. There's a lot of other brands such as Rock Auto, AutoZone, or O'Reilly's, and those axles will not work with ours. Now again, you can see here that we did remove the boots so you can get a clear visual on how we disassemble these axles. Now if you do purchase your axles through eBay, which most people do, you have to make sure that the eBay seller sent you 8 ball bearings. We're gonna go ahead and count them here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ball bearings. If it's 6 ball bearings, chances are it's an infinity axles and they will not work. The same thing goes to the other side. 8 ball bearings. Make sure you count them, otherwise they may have sent you infinity axles. And again, cannot stress this enough, they have to be OEM 370Z axles. Either purchase brand new through Nissan, not the Nissan Value Advantage, true Nissan, or through eBay secondhand used. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the end cap off the OEM 370Z differential side axle. The first thing you're gonna do is pop that through, the end cap will fall off and you can go ahead and slide the CV of the differential out. Now check out that snap ring. You're gonna go ahead and remove that snap ring to pull the CV out of there. So here we went and remove the snap ring. We're gonna set that off to the side and then you should be able to wiggle the CV off of the original axle. Now note the orientation when you take it out and put it off to the side because it's going to come in handy and you do have to install it the exact same way back onto our axles. Now the other side is the wheel bearing side where I don't see a snap ring because it's internal inside the spider. So the one thing that we're gonna have to do is disassemble it. Now the way I like to disassemble this is I like to turn the CV one way and hit with a dead blow or a mallet onto that spider. Now you can see here it popped right out. There is an internal snap ring that is inside the 370Z axle. And that internal snap ring will have to be removed from the OEM axle and transferred onto our axle as well. So here we have the driver and passenger side removed and set them in the differential side on the left and the wheel bearing side on the right, and we're going to go ahead and transition them onto our axle CVs. We're going to go ahead and take the factory 370Z axles out of there, and we're just going to worry about now our Apex engineered axles. So now one thing to note is always going to be the snap ring orientation. We do want to match that up with the differential versus the wheel bearing side. Now you'll notice these internal reliefs. That's going to aid in installing these CV onto our axle shaft. So noting that orientation is we're going to go ahead and slide that onto our axle. And now we're going to go ahead and install the snap ring onto that side of the CV. Here we had the snap ring installed onto that CV just like how it would be on an OEM setup. And from there we're going to go ahead and install the cage back onto the CV as well. Now one thing to also note is that there is a large ring onto that cage. Now you can remove the ring and slide it in that way, but for this video we are just going to go ahead and slide it the way that we removed it originally. So here we go. Now you can see that CV is installed inside the cage, and we're gonna go ahead and install the back cap as well. Now here's where you would install the dust boot onto the CV. Perfect. So now once you have that dust boot, you can go ahead and use any generic banding tool, and that would install the axles dust boots back onto the CV. We're not going to go ahead and band these because we will have to remove them to give them back to the customer. But now you'll notice this orientation of the 370Z side, and we'll go ahead and put in the snap ring onto the 370Z axle. But for this video, because we do have to remove the axle later for the customer to give it back to him, we are not going to install it, but we just slid the axle back on. Don't forget there is a dust boot that goes back on there, which we clearly forgot. So now we got to put the dust boot back and slide that back on there and slide the dust boot. So that is how the axle would install. Now again, you can buy a band clip usually off of Amazon, and you'd be able to reband those axle boots. And now one thing to always remember is this is a little bit of a messy process, but these Uline Tough Wipes come incredibly handy. We are not sponsored by them or anything. It's just something we've always used in the shop ever since we got introduced to them, and they take literally anything and everything off. So you're gonna go ahead and repeat the same process onto the other axle. Now, if you had a Ford side differential and a 370Z wheel bearing, you would essentially do the same thing, except the CV would be a Ford CV on the differential side, and you would have to purchase then a set of the OEM Ford Explorer axles, which would have a similar style CV, and the 370Z axles, which would just keep these. And we do know the axles are a little bit tedious to install, so if you have any questions or concerns, give us a call or give us an email. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again.